We're living in a pretty strange and anxious time. We have technology that our ancestors would have considered absolute magic. You could even say it's godlike. But all this power brings up a huge question. As we start building our own gods out of silicone and code, what happens to the old ones? And maybe more importantly, what happens to us? Let's dive into that.
That's not just some random thought. That's a stark warning from John Lennox, an emeritus professor of mathematics at Oxford University. What he's saying is that in our rush to solve all our problems with technology, we might just be creating a new artificial deity to worship. And honestly, this warning really taps into a feeling that a lot of us share.
I mean, think about it. Despite having all this incredible stuff and well-being, so many of us feel this deep sense of unease. We're called the anxious generation, kind of adrift without a clear purpose. It feels like all our technological progress didn't quite deliver on the happiness we thought it would.
This quote, which Lennox often uses, just captures our modern dilemma perfectly. We're running on ancient, Stone Age emotions, using outdated systems, but we're wielding the power of gods. It's a really dangerous mismatch. And as this tension builds, it's forcing a surprising shift in one of the oldest debates there is.
It's a phenomenon that some thinkers are starting to call the Great Reversal. Yeah, that long-held idea that science and faith are locked in this endless battle, well, it's starting to crumble.
For decades, the story we've been told is the one you see on the left: conflict, science versus religion. But Lennox points out that this is actually pretty inaccurate, historically speaking. In fact, he argues the real relationship looks a whole lot more like what you see on the right.
And this historical argument is just captured so perfectly by C.S. Lewis. He wrote that the whole idea that the universe is orderly and understandable, which is the absolute foundation of science, actually came from a belief that an orderly mind, a lawgiver, had designed it that way. So far from being enemies, one kind of gave birth to the other.
And look, this isn't just some dusty old idea being brought back. As Lennox points out, you've got prominent modern thinkers like these, and many of them come from secular or even atheistic backgrounds, and they're publicly re-examining the Judeo-Christian worldview. Something is definitely shifting. And this whole reconsideration of faith leads us right to Lennox's most powerful philosophical argument. All right, this is where Lennox really flips the script on the whole debate. He argues that the real conflict isn't science versus faith. No, he says it's between science and pure materialism. That's the idea that physical matter is all that exists. He starts by asking his fellow scientists a question that sounds incredibly simple. And the usual answer is, well, I do it with my brain. But according to Lennox, if you're someone who believes only in material reality, that answer creates a massive problem. And here's why. If you believe your brain is just the end product of a totally mindless, unguided, random process, then how on earth can you trust the thoughts it produces? How can you trust the very rationality that science itself depends on? Lennox puts it this way. Would you trust a computer if you knew it was just the result of a random accident? Of course not. So why would you trust a brain that came from the same kind of process? He argues that pure materialism completely undermines the very reason it needs to exist. It's like it's shooting itself in the head. Okay, so this leads to a really crucial realization, one that even the world's greatest scientists acknowledge. Science is incredibly powerful, but it's also limited. It can tell us how the world works, but it can't tell us why it's here or what any of it means. Lennox explains this so beautifully with what he calls his Aunt Matilda's cake analogy. So imagine a group of scientists analyzing a cake. They can tell you exactly what it's made of, all the chemistry, the physics, but they can never, ever tell you why Aunt Matilda baked it. For that, you need her to tell you, to reveal her purpose. You see? In this view, science and faith aren't enemies at all. They're just complementary ways of getting to the whole truth. So where does this leave us? Well, we're right back to our modern anxiety and our godlike technology. Lennox argues that we're now facing a choice between two very different stories about our future, two completely different hopes for humanity. On one side, you have transhumanism. This is the ultimate technological dream, right? The idea that we can solve the problem of death itself by upgrading our biology, merging with machines, and basically becoming our own gods. And this table just lays out how different these two hopes really are. I mean, both are pursuing a kind of immortality, but look at how they diagnose the core human problem. For transhumanism, our biology is the problem. For Christianity, it's our spiritual condition. So, of course, the solutions they offer are worlds apart. And this is really Lennox's final point. He argues that transhumanism, for all of its ambition, just can't address our deepest needs. It has no answer for things like guilt or forgiveness or meaning. The Christian claim, on the other hand, is that its answer is more complete because it addresses not just our bodies, but our souls.
So, as we stand here at this crossroads with all this incredible power to create and destroy literally in our hands, we're left with the most fundamental question of all. And it's not about what our machines are going to become, it's about who we are going to choose to be.